Hey there, this is Chris Jones, and as part of the MLS Unites initiative, we're going to take the next few minutes to get to know a few folks that are in different supporter groups that come together and make up the Backline. Welcome, guys. It's good to see everyone's smiling faces. Well, most of you. So appreciate it. Yeah, hopefully you got I'm one in on this one, even though it kind of blends in. The light ones, I gotta tell you, like those are actually not too bad. I feel like they're just as good as the originals. Who all got light ones?
I got the light one because I got my COVID-19. I'm trying to lose the COVID-19. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm rolling with the light.
Just 19?
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, there's a reason why
25.
There's a reason why we threw the scales out in my house. No scales. Unfortunately, we still have mirrors, so there's those things.
No escaping.
Well, I figured, we've got some questions we can go through here that, I'm sure we'll want to dive into, but I thought it'd be kind of cool for everyone to go around, introduce themselves, and just say what group that they're with. So, Ryan, if you want to start with you.
Ryan Stooksbury, I'm with the Assembly.
Valaire?
I'm Valaire. I'm with the Roadies, the NSC Roadies.
Chip, you want to go next?
Sure. Chip Wilkins. I'm here on behalf of Eastern Front.
And then we got Bill.
Bill from Music City Heaters.
And then last but not least, Fernando.
Fernando representing La Brigada de Oro.
Leading up to the beginning of the season. So I figure we kind of go through here a little bit and just we'll start, Ryan, with you. Tell us a little bit about the Assembly, where the name came from, kind of the idea of bringing together a group of supporters.
Well, the name came from Nashville being the capital city, Assembly there. And then a group of gathering of people is the Assembly. So that's kind of how that came about. It's pretty literal. And then the logo actually got its start through the Parthenon. It's modeled after it.
I was going to ask that because I did see semblance there.
And then, of course, Athens being a cultural center, that's kind of the other meaning to it, with the Parthenon being in Athens. We want Nashville to be the soccer center of Tennessee.
Gotcha. And obviously you guys support the club and do a great job with that. Is there something you guys do outside of soccer, whether is a movie night or whatever it may be? Like, what's something you guys do outside of game days and supporting the club?
We actually do Sunday brunches quite a bit with each other.
Okay.
That, and then sometimes we kind of have like house parties, game night kind of things, just kind of sprinkled in there whenever we get a chance.
So I should be offended that I haven't got an invite to the Sunday brunch yet?
Well, sometimes they're very last second for us, especially with all of our schedules mashing up. So we'll get you one.
Hey, I'm in. Especially if there's some good spots around Nashville, is all you know.
For sure. We get a little crazy anyway.
That's cool, man. So if anyone wants to hit up a Sunday brunch, they know where to go there. Valaire, let's shift to you, buddy. Like, tell us a little about the Roadies, how it came to be, the design of the logo, and all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah. So the Nashville Football Club, which turned into Nashville Soccer Club. A lot of the original members of the Roadies were founding members of NFC, as you well know, Chris. So we've been around for a while. Our as far as the name, it just comes from this this city's kind of a rich history of music. Obviously, every musical act needs the roadies that kind of put up everything and make sure that they're for support. So that's kind of where the name comes from. We support the team. We go around and kind of get everything ready for them, right? Kind of like the roadies would do for a band. As far as the colors, pretty self-explanatory. But I will go with the logo, which is right here on my chest, actually. But everything on the logo stands for something. Everything has something, has a meaning. If you go to our website, you'll be able to kind of figure that out. But I would say, like, from the logo perspective, the main thing you see in the middle is the rig, which is the front of a semi truck, if you would, or something like that. And that's kind of how people travel, musicians or the roadies, the actual roadies, right? That's how they travel. And then the shield of it is the interstate shield, which is, again, kind of with that whole roadies theme, kind of all goes together. And there's a lot of detail in there. And I just kind of, I don't want to go through our website again. It's all in there and kind of explained everything.
Yeah, I would say on a personal level, there is a CH. There's a lot of people who know this, some people don't. There is a CH there right at the kind of like the foot ornament of that logo, and it stands for Caleb Hamby, which is one of the original supporters of the club that passed away way too soon. Great guy, and so it's cool that there's still a little nod to Caleb in that logo.
Yeah, I believe he was NFC founding member number 4. As I read earlier, so that's how his work obviously helped us become who we are. He would be very happy to see us in MLS now.
He was he was a lot more likable than me. So there you go. So Valera, there's a number of ways that you guys support the soccer team and soccer initiatives. What's something you guys do outside of soccer to kind of help build that community that you and so many other groups like yourselves have around the club? Like, what's something you do outside of soccer?
Yeah, so one of the kind of biggest things we always believe in as being in the roadies and is that our president Newton always says any group of idiots can gather and drink a beer in a parking lot, right? That's nothing special, really. We still do that. Don't get me wrong, but we try to help the community, right? We try to be part of our community. We try to help the community, and we do that in different campaigns and different ways. So one of the ways is helping an organization I'm very involved in called Kicking It 615. That helps provide soccer for people, for kids who can't afford it. So that's kind of soccer related, really. Another way is every year we do a fundraiser for the Owaisi Center here in Nashville. And every year is a little different. The first year we did like bracelets. Second year was bandanas, but that's with the support of the other groups as well. And then we also support the community by just being, just showing up for volunteer events and stuff like that. So when the tornado happened, there were a group of roadies helping out in North Nashville, Lebanon, and all these areas. And that's kind of more on the serious notes and more of we want to be involved in the community. We do a lot of less serious, if you will, things as well. I think there are a couple of groups that do Dungeons and Dragons, like they play D&D. There's a pretty big group that games as, whether it's FIFA or Call of Duty or whatever else, so there's that as well. And there's also a group of us that plays rec soccer. So we have a rec soccer team. It's called the Rainbow Unicorns. I am part of it. The mighty Rainbow Unicorns, if you would.
Have y'all won a game?
Was that?
Have y'all won a game?
We won 2.
2 games? Out of how many?
Let's not talk about that. There's no reason to bring that up. Our motto is we play for the beer afterwards. So, winning is not important. But we do stuff like that all the time. And the other aspect of it is we also have a lot of small business owners and stuff like that, contractors within the roadies community. And we try to help each other out. So we have, a barber that just opened up recently, like yesterday, I think, because they're finally been able to open up, and we try to support them that way and stuff like that. So there's a lot of, I think it's such a big group and such a diverse group that if you're into something, chances are there's probably another roadie that's into it and ready to talk to you about it. And that's kind of how things get started.
Awesome. Chip, we'll go to you next, man. I'm trying to make a carousel here on my screen, so my order may be a little bit different than you guys. We'll get to the outside of soccer stuff because I know wearing that jersey, I know one of your answers what it's going to be.
Yep.
But walk me through a little bit of how the Eastern Front came to be, the logo, and obviously the colors explain themselves, but like how the Eastern Front kind of assembled, not to steal the assembly name there.
Yeah, Eastern Front is born of local soccer, and it all sort of cycles through soccer. We've played competitively in Nashville maybe 15 years now, and varying ages qualified different folks for different age groups. The core team was an over 30 group back 15 or so years ago when we started out. East Nashville based, although some of the guys have kind of moved on to other areas. That was where the team really formed, and originally it was called Three Crow United FC, which is, if anybody knows East Nashville and Five Points area, it's one of the more iconic bars in this part of town, originally called the Slow Bar, but at some point in there, early 2000s, renamed, rebranded. That's kind of where we settled. We've evolved a little bit since then, and through that, become really tight as friends, have advanced the team immensely from our early days of just trying to find 11 guys that could get on the field, although some weekends that's still a challenge. So when Nashville became more and more engaged in pro soccer, it just made sense for us to organize. One of the guys within our group, Whit Campbell, was the original idea guy for putting something together, maybe something a little different than your traditional supporters group in so much as we're a little bit older, maybe in terms of overall personality, a little more reserved. So although there are some folks in our group that's in the supporter section, most of us are spread out throughout the stadium and tend to focus the pregame stuff and following the game, the team, the league, and obviously worldwide. So when we came to the point of branding, we went through a lot of options. I was pulling up a list from 2-3 years ago with some of the names, most of which are pretty terrible.
You gotta tell us what were some of the other names then.
I'm gonna read a couple options. This will probably get me in a lot of trouble. Some of them are certainly not suited for public dissemination.
Yeah, we'll leave those off.
In no particular order, I think the one we were almost set on was Capital Guard, playing on Nashville. Obviously, is a capital of the states. It kind of just rang some stuff like
Capital Guard.
What's that? Yeah, Capital Guard.
Okay.
Pioneer Order, which sounds like a cult. There was a TriStar Alliance, which sounds like healthcare. So we weren't great at naming the operation. And in very 11th hour, we kind of went back to the East Nashville roots and decided that Eastern Front had a nice ring to it. So that's where the name came from.
Alliance, for some reason, sounds like Star Trek to me. I don't know why Star Trek popped to mind when I heard that.
They all have issues, that's for sure. And none of them were inspired. And like I said, we were, as I recall, very close to just giving up and going with Capital Guard. When very 11th hour, somebody threw out Eastern Front. It was not me. I don't recall who. And it kind of came from there. Marshall came up with the Latin ad astra per aspera, which is sort of started through difficulty, kind of referencing the growth of the game and the team and the city's relationship with it. We had a graphic design guy, Josh Jenkins, who was actually involved with the Backline at a certain level, and he helped us put together the logo as it exists now. So that's the backstory for it, and that's kind of what brought us here today.
So we're getting out to what do y'all guys do outside? I mean, you kind of hit on it. The jersey has always been a big thing with you guys is having the Eastern Front jersey. Clearly it's not technically outside of soccer, but what are some things like that you guys do outside of soccer to kind of help build the community?
Yeah, it spins off of soccer, but there's a lot of social gathering, backyard stuff. Typically is after games, after pickup, after seasons, that kind of thing. We've been engaged in East Nashville. There's Nobles is a bar over here owned by a friend of mine. We've been engaged with him and hope to continue that in terms of a place to go and gather. We've been involved in East Nashville on some levels with respect to tornado relief and tornado recovery, because even though, again, not all of us live over here, although I do, the core group is from here, or at least born of here, and a lot of us still do live over here. So it's definitely something we want to do more of in terms of finding something outside the game that we can benefit the community by getting involved in. But at this point, it's largely East Nashville focused. It tends to be social gatherings like any other group might have, just happens to be after soccer and that kind of thing.
So here's the hard-hitting question. Roadies versus Eastern Front, because I'm hearing now that both of you guys have a team.
Oh God, no. Nah.
Who wins that game?
Nah, man.
I don't know anything about their operation. I do know that within Backline, there's been discussion of both a soccer and a separate foosball competition within the group. Now, I don't know how far we've gotten with that. To my knowledge, not very. We're ready.
I would participate. You guys get the winning. I would participate. That's all.
That's huge. I mean, our average age puts us at a serious disadvantage. Although we may know the game, doing something about it is completely different. So
what you're saying is you need hockey rules when it comes to substitutions.
Something like that.
On,
throwing numbers over the boards would help us a lot.
Yeah, you got people that just play attacking and just play defense and just kind of sub in and out accordingly.
That's a fantastic idea.
I think I could actually play in that. Outside of that, I'm in terrible shape. Well, good deal. So, all right, we'll shift. Fernando, we're coming your way here, man. So, hope you're ready. New kids on the block, right? You're the young group of the elders here in the back line. Kind of walk us through like how the name come to be. Like, I'm sure that's a fun story. The logo and just like the reasoning for creating the supporter group in the first place. Fernando?
Oh, sorry about that.
It's all right.
No, something we wanted to start, I think last year was, I've been following when we first started Vanderbilt. I was most outcast, I just stayed to myself a lot. And last year we finally got together and we wanted to make it more of a cultural where anybody's welcome, we wanted to bring anything into it. And we thought, hey, why not, we saw, my main team before we had a team is Atlanta. So, I mean, they had the 12, and I knew a couple of my buddies. We used to go down there to watch them, and support them. And then they were like, "Why don't you guys make a team now that you're in the MLS?" So we figured, why not give it a shot first season and see where it goes from there.
You got an okay guy that kind of got it off the ground in Abel. If we had to like somebody, I guess we'll like Abel. You've got a Ryan's like, no. Nah, Abel's good.
I was like, I'm just probably more Gabby on that one, but
there we go.
I like Abel too. No, I love both of them.
So Fernando, like as much as you can remember here, like the name and the logo, what was kind of some of the thought into that?
So, we're called the Golden Brigada, La Brigada de Oro. It's just, a team. it just means like a supporter. It's like everybody. We wanted somebody like a squad to represent Nashville SC, where like everybody from every different cultural was welcome to come in, experience, especially the Latin flavor, the noise, the backline we could bring, the excitement, different excitement we could bring to everybody. And that was, so that's what we decided La Brigada de Oro, because that made more sense, because La Brigada means it's like a squad, so we wanted to be together and support Nashville SC and cheer them on, whoever wants to join us. And the cultural thing was our biggest thing. And we came with a logo. The logo it's an eagle, if you guys could tell.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to come something more transparent, something different, something recognizable, something where it could catch people's attention. We were going to go with a tank, but we were just not sure about it. It just felt like that might have been too inappropriate, So
yeah.
And then like the eagle just represents like we're unity together. Like everybody is together in this, and everybody kicks. We're going to fly together as a team, as a supporter section of different ethnicities and different cultural, and this is why we chose an eagle. It just made sense. The city needed bringing culture now to Nashville SC. We needed something add something flavor to it.
Well, and we'll get to it in a minute, but from the pictures saw and walking through the tailgate, there was definitely some flavor that was brought on that day. But and look, I don't know if y'all meant for this or not, but kind of the Golden Eagle, Golden Brigada de Oro, like it kind of fits there, the Golden Eagle of in the United States. So I thought that was kind of cool. Give me some example, like what are some things, even if it's as simple as barbecues, like some other groups have mentioned, what are some things that your SG does outside of soccer to kind of grow numbers and build that sense of community?
So right now we're brand new, and it just happened to be the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
So it made it a little harder for us to do a couple of things. It really did. It was difficult, but before everything started, we would go, like, there's soccer clubs I used to play for. I still play, like in Nashville. There's over there by Antioch Sportsplex. There's a whole bunch of Latin community down there. So we will bring a table. We will set up and everything, and tell everybody, hey, we have La Brigada. It's going to be coming to Nashville MLS. Like, let's get everybody together. You guys don't have to feel like an outcast. Everybody's going to learn the cheers. Everybody's going to be in this all together, and that was our biggest thing. We did not want to make nobody feel like an outcast or somebody left out. Everybody could, once soccer started, soccer just brings unity, and you can experience all the different cultural in soccer, especially in La Brigada, and that's what we did. We'll have we didn't get to do much, we went out to eat just as a team, as a whole, group and everything. But once the pandemic happened, to be honest with you, it stopped us from doing anything. The last thing I can remember we did was we all scattered and went different little areas when the tornadoes hit. And, I spent all day Saturday, helping out. A couple of us went out there and we took down trees and brought chainsaws, and it was 3 or 4 of us out there where I was at, so.
I was actually going to say, it was funny. So, spent a little time in North Nashville, mostly actually. So helping out there. And it was funny how so many people coming out of the woodworks with chainsaws. Like, it's just, there's so many chainsaws around the city, apparently. You couldn't go a block without, and not to make light of the situation, it was a terrible situation. We all know that. But you couldn't go a block without hearing someone ripping a chainsaw and doing some cutting on trees that have been fallen or what have you. So, yeah, totally get that. All right, last but not least, he's been patient. He's been quiet. Bill, tell us a little bit here about the Heaters. You guys talk about flavor. You bring your own little flavor and sarcasm to social media. There's been times where I've probably been on the receiving end of that. The club has been on the receiving end, but we know it's in good fun. Tell us a little bit about the Heaters.
Yeah, the Heaters are, a group of folks that genuine, even if we do come off a little jovial and in jest and this, that, and the other, we care. And because we care, we can come off that way where it's, we'll poke fun or we'll, take issue with some things, but never in a serious manner, just always, kind of looking at it like, how you rib your siblings, where it's like, we do it because we care. And the Heaters are unique in that sense, but at the same time, it's all cut from the same cloth. So we're always looking at ways we can help the club and this community, but at the same time do it in our own fashion and have fun with it, and never take ourselves too seriously, but take the mission seriously of promoting this club and promoting this community.
Actually, have a fun before you get into like the name Heaters and the logo and all kind of stuff. I have a funny story about some of that sarcasm. So we were going to do an event. Actually, it was a pregame event on October 12th last season in USL. You know exactly where I'm going with this. And so we were going to do this pregame event at Downtown Sporting Club. Max Goldberg and great people there. Long story short, they had closed down Paradise Park. RIP, but now back. They had closed down Paradise Park and
because of us,
Sporting Club. And so we're sitting there in a meeting, kind of going through how we're going to do these, this pre-match event. And all of a sudden, the Heaters, in true fashion, I think it was one of the guys that's actually a lawyer, put out a press release, looked very authentic, seemed very serious about how the Heaters can no longer support a club that backs any organization that closes down Paradise Park. And so I'm sitting there in a meeting with Max and some of these other guys, and they just kind of lean over and show me their phone. They're like, dude, what is this? What's the big deal? And I was like, I have no idea. We'll figure it out. It's going to be okay. No problem. We'll fix it. And so I call up Daniel, and he's like, my goodness, it was a joke. We are getting so many calls right now. And so luckily everyone kind of understood. It's a little bit of a dry humor. Max got over it and everything else. But that was one of those firsthand. I was like, oh, what is happening here?
Yeah, that was our first wave, that was the first time we really made waves. And you say dry sense of humor, it's sandpaper sense of humor. So it's if you don't get it, you will eventually. But for that, it was just, we love Paradise Park and we feel 100% responsible for coming it back. I will take full responsibility. But yeah, one of our members met his
and the
now
popularity
wife.
of White Claw.
With that, and that's just sort of our one sense of humor, and two, we like to make waves. And that was we weren't boycotting the club, we were just kind of saying we want P Park back, and it's back, so we did our job. So that's just kind of that really, like you said, dry sense of humor that kind of comes through.
On behalf of Nashville, I want to thank you.
Yeah.
Although some people may say on behalf of their wallets, not too happy with you.
Yeah, well, you know what? We believe in what we believe in, and we do it 100%, just like we do for the club. So
there you go. So walk us through. I know there's some subtleties in the logo. I think my favorite part is the smoke and the reference there. I won't spoil it for you, but the name Heaters and some of the elements that's in the logo.
Yeah. So the name. It's funny. The name compared to the logo, there's a lot of intent with the logo and the name. It's just kind of Daniel, who started the Heaters. He just kind of one night, we spent a lot of time in the Nations, between Nations Bar and Grill and Centennial. And one night he just kind of saw no smoking sign, and just Music City Heaters just made it rolled off the tongue really well, and it made sense. And it's one of those things that when it hits, and you just kind of roll with it. And there's a lot of Heaters is used for a lot of things. If you're on a roll, on blackjack, if you listen to a song and go, this is a heater. It's anything that sort of hits. And we kind of, when we came together and were like Music City Heaters, we didn't even question it. We're like, cool, that's who we are. And it's funny because the other side of it, you know, the logo is super intentional, working with a graphic designer to sort of kind of walk through a branding exercise on what do you want to represent, what do you feel like this you know organization is going to do, and how does it represent the city and the club itself. And you know, in the logo, that the skull is basically modeled after the Nashville seal, the Native
Which has got to be
American.
one of the coolest seals in America.
Honestly,
Have a
it is.
Native American holding a skull. I mean, come on.
Holding the skull, and that's where we got that. Some other elements, and then the smoke from the cigarette is the actual shape of the Cumberland River as it snakes through the city. So it's one of those things, like a lot of things we do on the if you first look at it on the surface level, you may just go, okay, but then when you look at it, it's like, oh, that's interesting, that's funny, that's a little bit deeper than what the joke looks like or what the logo looks like. There's always something a little more to what we do, and it's more substantive than what you think.
Yeah, when I first heard the name coming from I mean, I played a few sports, but one of them was baseball. To me, it was a fastball. I'm like, why are these guys referencing a fastball? It has nothing to do with soccer, you know, or football. So that it took a little education. I didn't realize a cigarette or whatever is a heater. Now, is there something also with the skull profile? Is that something as well?
So you've got there's a couple other like tobacco leaf elements to some of the stuff that's like, you know, that you wouldn't on the surface get, and that's one of them as well. So you know, and let it be known that we cannot fix your HVAC system. We don't do any heat services whatsoever. So just like stop hitting us up on Twitter to fix your HVAC system.
Hey,
so.
It could be a revenue line there. You never know. Gotta pay for TIFOs.
You got to.
So look, we'll use that to roll right into this one. You know, before we get too far in, definitely want to say, you know, thank you to our friends over at Heineken. You can even see it here. There we go. Supplying me and the gents some beers tonight. So cheers on that one, guys. Speaking of TIFO, you know, you guys did a great piece, B-roll and explaining it. The club, you know, we wanted to help shed some light on that as well, leading up to the second showing or the encore showing of our inaugural match. Obviously, you were a key part in that, and so many other people played a big part of it as well. But kind of walk us through, you know, it doesn't have to be a real long thing, but the ideation all the way through the execution, and what were some kind of the fun things that happened during that time period?
So, I mean, the initial seed of it, when we kind of roughly looked at each supporters group and looked internally and said, who wants to be a part of this? And, you know, the volunteers from that came together and sort of started our own little, you know, internal conversations about what do we think would be the best. Like, this is our introduction to the league, to the country, to the world. What would best represent this club and the city? And a lot of discussions went into it. And the thing that we always kind of came back to was something that the club was already coming out to with God's Gonna Cut You Down by Johnny Cash to the field. That was sort of like that moment when you're pregame, you're in the stadium, you're ready for everything, drums, smoke, everything. And then you hear that and you're like, okay, we're getting close to kickoff. And that was sort of
USL days. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. And we sort of looked at also Johnny Cash as the perfect sort of representation of Nashville as a city.
Cash, right? Like, yeah.
It's Johnny Cash. Like, I don't have to explain that. And as a, you know, being the new kids on the block in the league, we needed to come out, not necessarily swinging, but like, you know, we had to make our statement in that. And the Man in Black was the perfect representation. And that's kind of just where it came from. Folsom, the picture from Folsom Prison,
yeah,
is one of the most iconic things, you know, that you could, you know, apply to what you're doing. And we kind of found that and we're like, perfect, this is it. And we can't have a middle finger on a TIFO, but the badge itself can represent sort of, hey, this is who we are. We're the new kids on the block. We don't care what you think.
So, not meaning to put you on the spot here. Do you know why Johnny Cash gave the number 1 symbol there in that picture at Folsom Prison?
Probably a lot of reasons, but
Yeah. I'll give you a hint. He was asked a specific question, and that was his response.
Probably smile.
Close. They basically said, "Hey, we take a picture for the warden," and that was his picture.
That'd be my reaction too.
Yeah, yeah. So there you go, a little history there. So walk me through how, obviously for those who don't know, up until this season, the backline didn't exist. Each SG sort of operated independently, but everyone got along. With the formation of the backline, it really was, hey, let's all come together. Let's do bigger and better things. And I think this TIFO was one of the first examples of that. How cool is it to see all these different groups come together and create something very iconic to Nashville, like you said, and and we'll get to this in a little bit in the diversity, right? I mean, you had folks from all kinds of different backgrounds. New group, the Golden Girls, that's unofficial but still like wanting to recruit, like all kinds of folks from different backgrounds and experiences coming together for this. How cool was that?
It was unbelievable because you've been going to matches, you've been tailgating, you've been going, meeting people, but in those moments when you meet folks, it's in passing. This was legitimate, sort of growing, getting to know each other. We've met this time, and this time, but this is the first time to really have a really like great organic conversation and sort of both focusing on the task at hand, which was a massive task, but at the same time sort of just like having like looking at each other at each different step. I know Moles, myself, Robbie Crump, sort of project managing it, looking at each other at different moments and just being like, oh, this is insane what we're doing. We're at a jet hangar at BNA where we're doing such a massive project, and that sense of community was just another layer of how special it is to support this club and sort of being part of different organizations that as one giant organism finally coming together and being really crucial gears in a big machine, and seeing the machine work as we were those gears was like, it was incredible. And that's something that we'll be doing a lot each season following, but that first one was really special.
Was there anyone that maybe in this group that may have participated, was there ever a moment, and it feels like anytime there's a big project you have these moments, was there ever a moment where you're just kind of like, uh-oh, we just screwed up? Was there any, if it's just a little small something, like you didn't stencil something the correct way, was there ever a moment where it's just like, how are we going to fix this? No?
There was definitely a moment, and I don't remember what led to it, but I took a call or two leading up to the game where there was real doubt they were going to pull this off. I don't remember a lot of details. I just remember getting a call from Jason Moles.
Yeah.
And there was an agreement that if we can't do this first class, 100% all the way, you can't make, your first impression is unique, et cetera, et cetera. And we were dangerously close to pulling the plug on the whole thing in favor of let's reorganize and do a better job, because obviously everybody's doing a lot of these things for the first time, not just the club, but a lot of these, SGs are operating at an MLS level for the first time. The Backline as an umbrella entity is just trying to figure out what it is and how it operates. It's a fantastic looking T-shirt. Credit to Bowles for that, I believe. So without remembering a lot of specificity, because I was not on the front lines of the TIFO project, and full credit to the guys that were, and to that B-roll that was done, which I thought was fantastic. Mm-hmm. I can tell you there was a call. I was sitting in this room, and Moles and I essentially agreed this isn't coming together, and we're going to punt in favor of whatever comes next. And in hindsight, there would have been no next. So at least on a timely fashion. So that definitely occurred, and credit to the guys that stepped up. Robbie and Moles come to mind primarily for me, but I'm sure there were plenty others. They're just the guys I was exposed to. So yeah, there was a moment where this whole thing was about to get unplugged.
Like I can imagine, something that size, it never fails. Without knowing the answer, I had to imagine there was a moment where that took place. And I think where I was the most proud to be associated with you guys was when I think I reached out to, I guess it was Moles, and said, "Hey, I want to help come paint." And he's like, "Yeah, no, all the time slots are full." I'm like, "What do you mean they're full?" Like, yeah, they're all accounted for. Like, there's no open spots. And so, like, to me, that was cool. I was like, yes, the backline is doing it.
Chris, if I can add something about the TIFO, I think
Sure.
like building up to it, I didn't participate because there's no part of me that can paint with my hand. I can do some Photoshop work maybe, but nothing on my hand, right?
Okay.
So I didn't really participate. So I didn't really get to see it until maybe I have some sources a day before the game that they showed me, maybe 2 days
You
before
knew a
the
guy.
game. Who knows? But even with that, even when I saw it the first time kind of on the phone, I was just like, oh, okay, cool. This is a nice thing. But when we were there and I was under it and I had it right above me, then I got to see it on the national television. I think one thing it showed is the personality of this team, or the personality of the supporters at the very least. I think we as Nashville SC have had a lot of doubts from national fans and as well as media, in all honesty. And I think there were a lot of people coming out and saying some negative stuff, or maybe not even negative, but kind of predicting the worst, right? And I just felt like that was such a good response to that. And I felt like that showed the personality that Nashville is going for. Like, hey, I don't care. You can call me plastic all day long. This is my team. You know what I mean? This is kind of just showed that personality that I think in the best way possible. To me, it was the warden was all those people, all the doubters, right? And I was Johnny Cash. That's kind of how it worked out, really, at the end.
Nah, look, it was when I was told what the TIFO was going to be and that it had been approved. That was my first question. I was happy with it. Not that you needed my, stamp of approval, but I just thought it fit. To what all you guys have been saying, it really fit the spirit of kind of like, no matter what, very much Johnny Cash. No matter what you think about us, no matter what you think of our town, our club, our team, we're gonna keep bringing it. Like, we're gonna keep coming, and you're gonna have to deal with us. And so, like, to me, it was a perfect choice to kind of come out the gates and make that statement.
Yeah, and that was sort of the big thing. We kind of early on, when we got the idea and locked it in, and other ideas were coming in, we kind of just put blinders on and said, we really feel as though this is the correct choice for this TIFO. And when you do that, you kind of lock that in until it's displayed. And then Twitter's going to do its thing, and football Twitter's going to do its thing. And the moment when it was sort of universally loved by that was the biggest thing, is like everything, research, looked at everything on Twitter. Everyone loved it and said, like, well done. That's a great introduction.
Never happens.
In supporter culture and social media, that doesn't happen.
Yeah. And that was, back to what Chip was saying earlier about like the early days when, Moles, myself, and Robbie Crump were kind of like, are we going to be able to do this? And just looking at the numbers and looking at how big this thing was and how much work's going to go into it. We just, like, every day, and we're full-time working our other jobs. This was like another full-time job that we were putting in work for.
Yeah.
And to pull it off day of the execution of it, that was the first time I actually enjoyed that afternoon, was the minute it was like unfurled, brought back up and on a pallet, and then we were just like, okay, let's do this. So it was insane.
It turned out great. It's a lot of work for a short period of time, but it turned out great. So before all of that, there's a little bit of a party outside the stadium. in tailgating and a couple of different elements. And I know Ryan, the Assembly's got something there too. But Fernando, before the game, I'm walking through there. I'm seeing the big tailgate scene. There's the big, I don't know what you call it. It's like the beer pool or whatever that. Yeah,
it's a beer pool.
There's some great
exactly
music.
it.
I don't want to steal too much of your thunder. The headdresses, like there's really cool stuff going on. Some great food. Good grief! Like I almost didn't want to go into the game. What was that tailgate like? So many different groups. You got 6 or 5 groups here represented. But so many people, whether you're in an SG or just a fringe fan, want to get to know Nashville Soccer Club. What was that tailgate like?
Man, I'll tell you what, tailgating was a different. Like everybody was saying earlier, like everybody being a new Nashville SC team, like everybody was expecting. I think a lot of people are like, "Is Nashville going to do it? Are we gonna go to expectations?" And I think we did. I think we brought it. I know I got to walk around a little bit. Everybody's tailgate, and then I had to stay in our tailgate most of the time because I have to do a lot of helping around the area right there. But man, I'm like you said, if you got to come to our tailgate, we have people dancing, we have people with hats, we have people, you name it, it was happening at that tailgate. Like anything, we brought everything to the table. I think I brought 3 bottles, and it was gone in a heartbeat. Like I got the honor to walk the flag on the field, and I was like, hey, here's the 3 bottles, and I come back, I'm like, hey guys, where's the 3 bottles at? They're like, oh, they're empty, they're right there, we need to get some more. I was like, oh man, you guys are going. So I mean, the experience, man, I'll tell you what, it was awesome. It was just like, I think we could not have done it any different, like I think we met above the expectations, like especially us, bringing the culture to everybody, bringing the diversity to everybody, bringing the Latin music, bringing the dances, bringing, we, like you said, we have free tacos, we have a lot of good food right there. So, and we couldn't keep up with the demand, to be honest with you. We had a hard time keeping up with the demand. And it was just like, everybody's like, oh, do this. I was like, oh man, I just want to drink,
Yeah. What would you say? What was your favorite thing? That you get to walk around a little bit and see a little bit of everything. You can be biased. You can say it was the tacos. You can say whatever, right? What was probably your favorite part of the tailgate?
Man, I think my favorite part of the tailgate was just, I think I saw unity between every tailgate. It was just like every main supporter was just joining together, and it didn't matter if you were here, if you were there, who you represented. And I just sat back and I just looked at everybody. I got to look back and I was like, wow, this is the experience everybody needs to experience every soccer game we come to. And I think my main thing was just the love for the game and just the unity we brought together as a whole squad, like the whole squad, Nashville SC. I think that's the most thing I got out of it, was just how the unity between everybody came together as one and made Nashville SC an awesome night that night.
No, look, couldn't agree more. I think, again, in the past, you had a lot of it was environment and where we had to play games. You had different tailgates in different locations, and partly because of the new location and the kind of the formation of the Backline and these joint initiatives, it just took on, you're right, it took on another life. It went to that next level. Chip mentioned earlier of operating at an MLS level, right? I mean, every club, as you move up, your players operate at a level, your front office operates at a level, and the supporters operate at a different level, right? And that tailgate was MLS level and beyond, in my opinion. And so I enjoyed it walking through. I kind of wish I could have just took the credential off and just stuck around and said, hey, they got it inside the stadium, no big deal. They don't need me, but unfortunately I didn't. You mentioned squads there. part of the tradition at our tailgates is been the shot ski. You get a squad together for the shot ski. Ryan, you want to talk us through that a little bit?
The shot ski made its debut with it's actually our scarf. It had the Nashville skyline on the bottom of it with the Starry Night, plus some other elements on the bottom of it. And it always has a branded shot for a game. So it's always some sort of theme of a shot.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's always going to be a little something different, but it's going to be sort of a theme towards that shot, and it gets its own name. It just kind of depends on what's happening. They're always super delicious. If they last long enough to get one is sometimes the issue. And it's kind of what we ran into to the tailgate. I took the responsibility of kind of the main staple of it and doing the burgers. And we didn't really have a grill situation where we could grill. We had over 50 pounds of hamburger meat, which we made burgers out of. And then we also had a sweet potato black bean vegan option that we did separately.
Impressive. Look at you.
And we were trying to figure out what we were going to do to cook everything while people were there, and we didn't really have the option to grill to do it there on site and the logistics of getting there and everything. So I decided, I was like, all right, I'm going to pre-cook them the night before, and then I'm going to make the steaming solution so we can heat them up on a griddle in a pan, and they steam in the solution, even get tastier. And it was really off the wall kind of thing for me to do. Tried it. It ended up working. And the sweet potato black bean burgers actually had a black bean hummus that went with them that was homemade. And the burgers got topped with a homemade spicy ketchup also.
Grief.
It was a very kind of more gourmet tailgate fare for just burgers and whatnot. We also had a member make and custom brew 2 beers for the tailgate. He did a porter and a golden ale, which was really amazing. They didn't last any time at all. I got, I think, maybe a half a glass of each because I actually was one that tapped them. And that's when I tried it, and I didn't get any more after that because I was stuck on the burger station until we ran out, which was a lot faster than what I thought it'd be. I was shocked at the sheer amount of people that made it through. Like it was amazing to me. I kind of sat back in awe afterwards, like when we finally ran out of food. And I was like, this is kind of amazing that this happened like this, and kind of pulled it off. For it to be that size and to be our first time doing it at that, kind of size and level, it was amazing. It was a lot of fun, a lot of nerves though. But I was really happy after, when we started breaking down the tailgate, I was like, we might have actually pulled that off.
Yeah, I've only got to do, for those who don't know the shot ski. I mean, it should be pretty self-explanatory, but essentially it's a ski with shot glasses fastened to it, and it's 4 or 5.
It's 4.
4 people. You have 4 people. They all take a shot at the same time. It's something fun to do. I actually did it once with Ian. He was a bit aggressive. He kind of shot it back. I was like, wait a second here, calm down. But it's definitely something fun to do, and I think there's some strategery in what position you accept in tailgating. I've noticed Clay Trainum, Valeria, you can attest this. Clay Trainum had the best spot. He was on the beer pool, which essentially was a big pool with you brought a beer, you put beers in, you could take beers out, kind of a thing. He was the lifeguard, and so what a role.
So Clay doesn't drink, right? And he just kind of sat there the whole time in the middle of everything. So anybody who walked by, he gets to talk to. He just sat there the whole time like a king,
Clay hates
watching
to talk
the
to people.
beer. It's like, who are you gonna watch for? People are bringing beer and taking beer.
Yeah.
If you can't just be like, hey, you can't have a beer. That's not gonna happen. It's just he just had to have a role in this whole thing. But very Clay-like, if you would. But that's what I was gonna say. I don't think the roadies contributed much for the food, but we definitely brought a lot of drinks. I know all the other groups brought a lot of drinks as well, but those kiddie pools, I think other groups shared with it as well, but I think there were 3 of them. I don't know, but that was something we started the last Nissan game in USL, and it was one beer pool that was emptied out completely and added more to, and then emptied out again. So we learned our lesson and bought two more, I think, and just kind of let it happen. So, you know, maybe we didn't get enough food in, but we definitely, I think, got enough beer in.
Well, Valero, I'll stick with you here. It's a little bit off topic, but I think you sort of hit on it there, and Fernando hit on it about the unity of the tailgate, and then you bring it up October 12th, made me really kind of think of this, to be honest with you. Another example of what these games can do, and that unity aspect, go back to October 12th with the Kurdish community and what took place in the stands and everything. What do you remember about that night? It wasn't MLS, so it's a little bit off topic, but to me, it was still really a cool moment in what we've tried to accomplish with the Backline and bringing people from all different backgrounds together to support this great game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where I went to high school at John Overton High School, at Harding Place.
That's a good soccer school too.
That's a pretty good soccer school. You know why? Because about half of the people that go there are Kurdish.
Yeah.
So
you're 100% right. Like it's a very diverse school that
yes,
for a public school is traditionally one of the better soccer schools. But go ahead, sorry.
Absolutely. No. And the reason I bring that up is because I'm not Kurdish myself, but when I was at John Overton, I moved to this country when my freshman year of high school was my first year here. And when I was at Overton High School, it never felt like, that foreign to me, because every time I looked, there were people in my situations, there were immigrants there, and there were minorities there. And it was one of those things where when I was walking the hallways of the school, I would see a Kurdish person, a Hispanic person, and I even at one rate I was learning English and Spanish at the same rate because I was playing so much soccer with Hispanic people. And that's, I mean, obviously I lost it now. I can't speak Spanish. I'm still a La Brigada member though, but I can't speak Spanish.
Some of the Spanish you probably learned is not the way to learn.
I will not repeat it to y'all.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of how it felt like, right? Going to school.
Right.
And all 4 years at TSU, also a local university, was kind of the same thing. Like I never felt out of place. It was always, there were immigrants, there were minorities, there were stuff like that. So there was, however, even though this sport is, it's kind of like so important to immigrants like myself, like this is all I know. This is the only sport I ever played in my life. So with this sport being so important in our lives, it felt like we were always missing that aspect with NSC. And I don't think this is at anyone's fault or anything like that. I just felt like we weren't all there. And there were people like Fernando and others that were there, don't get me wrong, like myself. But it was never as big or as visible. You know what I mean?
As October 12th?
Until October 12th,
Yeah.
exactly. And then we saw the Kurdish flags, and I actually saw a bunch of people I went to high school with, and I was like, oh, I haven't seen you in a long time.
Right.
Like how's it going, And the thing that I love the most out of that is that, that they never, well, I'm sure somebody paid for a ticket, but I would say about 90% of the Kurdish community did not pay for the tickets. Whether it was the roadies, whether it was another group or whoever it was, we got the tickets for them. People started chipping in or whatever it was. We were just like, hey, just all you have to worry about is coming here and we'll get you in. Don't worry about it. And I think I want to mention somebody specifically, Eric Burke. He also came up with the name The Backline, by the way. But he specifically was kind of the person who reached out to the Kurdish community and invited them. And then it was like one person invited 3 people, and 3 people invited 6, and 6 invited 12. And all of a sudden we had like 100 people. It was amazing, right? And what I love the most out of that is that we have some pretty important members of the roadies right now who were from that group that just kind of stuck around. They loved it, They were like, oh, you're going to do this for us, then we love soccer. They're going to stay. And even if they're not roadies, a lot of people, that was their first experience with professional soccer in Nashville or professional soccer overall. And just like anybody else, it really kind of, they liked that aspect and they wanted to stay around, and that's what I liked the most. But there was a point where I stood in the supporters section at Nissan Stadium before MLS. I'll get to that in a minute, and I stood there and I looked around and it was like, oh, look at this. This feels more Nashville to me than it ever has been. You know what I mean? Because to me, the Nashville I grew up in,
that's your Nashville,
had that community. You know what I mean? That community was so important and so much part of everything that it didn't make sense not having them there. And I'm not saying they never showed up or anything like that. Like there were people there, but it just wasn't as visible to us.
No, I love that, right? Because I think it's a great way of saying it. That's your Nashville, right?
Yeah.
That, like, my Nashville is my Nashville. Ryan's Nashville is his. Fernando's is his. Like, it's a really cool way of putting that. Like, everyone has their Nashville and what it means to them and their own community. And I think what was so cool about that on October 12th was the club and the Backline provided a atmosphere that group, or any other group for that matter, can safely express themselves, right? Something very, very, I mean, at times it's political, but something very important to that Nashville, that part of Nashville, could express themselves, and it's okay, right? And so that, to me, that was another proud moment in the Backline.
No, absolutely, and that's kind of how it moved on to MLS, right? With La Brigada and other groups like that. The fact is, what I experienced from Nashville, whether that being in my high school or where I lived and everything like that, is different than what somebody who just moved here 2 years ago. Not that saying that they shouldn't, enjoy a Nashville soccer club, like they totally should. But like one of my friends, like Steven, we all know Steven, like he's, big and loud, and he's on the billboards, and he will remind you of it 17 times. But like Steven just moved here 5 years ago. When I was comparing Nashville to him, it was completely different. You know what I mean? Like he just had a different experience because he'd never lived what I lived. And to have a club that represents all these different people, it is so important. And I feel like on October 12th and moving on to MLS with La Brigada and all the other initiatives, I feel like we're finally getting there to that point where, if whether you just moved here, whether you've been living here for 5 years, whether you've lived here your whole life, Nashville Soccer Club is for you. And I think that is kind of the goal that I've always wanted to make sure we reach.
So, Valera, we'll stick with you on this one. And Ryan, Chip, Bill, anyone, feel free to chime in anytime here. With your history with the club and being here as long as you have in the city of Nashville, walk me through that experience going. Now we've gone from Tailgate. We kind of skipped around. We went TIFO first and then Tailgate, but it's okay, whatever. That's how my brain works. Walk me through the experience of now going into the stadium and just living that moment and that game as a supporter.
I can tell you about it. I feel like for hours I can talk about this, but I'll make it short. I'll make it very short.
Yeah, we need to condense.
So I was extremely stressed during the tailgate. Let me just be clear. Usually I have 1 or 2 beverages, adult beverages, if you would. I had 0. I didn't have any. I was kind of stressed because I was running this table for Kicking the 615. But anyway, so we get to the stadium, right? And at this point, I get there. I have 12 people with me because I brought 12 people with me because I'm a good friend. And and some of them, this is their first ever soccer game. Like they haven't even watched high school soccer, right?
Okay.
Like so I'm like bringing all these people in, and I finally get all their tickets in. I transferred a couple of them, but most of them were with me. And I'm trying to find a seat in the supporters section. And I'm just like, I have never seen the supporters section this full. I have never been in a supporters section like this before. So I'm freaking out. But I get my seat, and obviously I don't sit down. I get there, and then I see the performance by Judah and the Lion, and I'm singing along. It's because earlier that week we had that music video shoot for that song, and I was like, this is amazing, this is great, and all that. But I'm still kind of like, I feel like there's something I have to do. There's always something I have to do, right? And then we saw the guitar riff, and I was like, this is amazing. National anthem, all that stuff. Pretty great. Like, this is awesome. But one thing, I kept looking up, and I would look, and I'll see more people come in. And I would look, and I'll see more people come in. And seats were filling up. The 100 section filled up. The 200 section filled up. The 300 section was, not filled up at all in the beginning. And then all of a sudden, there's so many people there. You know what I mean? One side was filled up. The other side filled up. And there I was looking up, and I was like, this is almost more than a Titans game. And I love the Titans, you know what I mean? So I was just sitting there like, this is amazing, right? What is happening? This is great. But I don't think I took it in, because as soon as that first whistle went on, the kickoff happened, I immediately went into muscle memory. I went into force of habit, and I just started leading chants, because I've been doing that for 2 years. I know what I'm doing. This is it. I hear a whistle. There are Nashville players playing. That's what I'm doing. And I get on my seat, and I'm, leading the chants, and I'm getting everybody hyped up and everything. And that goes on for like 30 minutes. We score, they score, whatever. They score, we score, they score again. But at the 30th minute or about there, I just that's when I'm like, I turn around, I stop leading chants for a second, and I just take a breath, and I'm like, holy crap. Like I was like, I have been so stressed about getting everything ready. Like, I am about to play this game, or like, my role is super small in this thing, like I am a fan, that's it. Or a supporter. And I took a breath, and I just looked at everybody, and one of the things that kind of felt so similar, but yet so much bigger was, I looked down, and I saw our boys in gold and everything. But I looked on the bench and kind of around that area, and I see Matt Pickens, and I see Kosuke Kumura, right? And then later on, Alan Wynn comes on, right? And then I look to my right, and I see assembly members, and I look to my left, and I see La Brigada members who I know. And all of a sudden, I'm like, wait a minute, I know all this. I like, this is familiar to me, but it's in such a bigger scale that my brain just wasn't really registering it. It was just like, oh, hold on a second. Like, this is the same thing, but only multiplied by 50. You know what I mean? And at that moment, like, that all felt like, oh, here is my team. Here's this team in my backyard in Nashville, playing at the highest level of soccer this country has to offer. And I don't think I'll ever have a sporting event fulfill me like that. The closest thing is probably visiting the Emirates, being an Arsenal fan my whole life. But,
Okay, moving on.
That didn't even get close. That didn't even get close to having your own team. I've spent, it's not just my money or anything like that, because that's too simple, I guess, to just summarize it to that. But I've spent time and effort. For the USL years, I was like a salesperson for NSC to all the people in my office. And I'm sure all of the people in this call have done the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, I would just sit down there and just be like, let me preach to you about soccer and why you should support your local club. And it felt like it finally paid off, right? Like, I was looking around and look at that picture behind you. Look at your background.
Yeah.
That's an amazing sight. Being in the middle of that, it was amazing. And I just can't wait to get back on it.
Well, I'm trying to lean to see if I don't see it in there, but there's the iconic beer flag that everyone has grown to love. There you go.
This is actually the replacement.
Uh-oh.
Nowadays, the eyelets have tore out of it, so it's not really able to be used anymore. So it's retired. This is the one for this year. So it's also doubling as a cape every now and then. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but it has been used as a cape for some beer deliveries.
How did the beer flag come to be? What's the story? Because I know it's like your every game kind of thing, right?
Well, if anyone that knows me, I do like beer quite a bit, and I just happened to be shopping for flags because I was like, I want something different, and I came across this one, and I'm like, well, it's got all the right colors, and it's got something that I really love on it, so it seemed to work out pretty well for me, so I bought it. And then it ended up blocking beer from getting on me a lot in the USL days because I kind of used it as a shield. So then it just not only looked like beer, it also smelled like beer, which I'm sure this one will eventually too. But it was one of those things. It's my personality in a flag essentially for the most part. But it gets passed around too because I'm not always the one that's waving it. Some people are like, "Hey, I want to wave a flag." I was like, "I'm tired. Here you go."
That's what I got to do. Yeah, exactly.
I was like, "This frees up my other hand, so it's perfect."
Then you can have 2 beers.
Correct. Which I've never done that, right? Never. Like not even now.
There you go.
But Valier's saying so like the tailgate finished, that was a relief. Walking to the stadium, I actually kind of had a little bit of a snafu with that. Alex, who was capo in that game's phone broke like the day before.
Yeah.
So he had no way of being able to get in because his phone no longer works. So look, transfer your tickets to me if you can. I think he ends up doing it through work on like the register at work.
Right.
Transferred me the tickets. And he had to work that day, so he's getting there kind of late. I'm like frantically searching for him, like at whatever gate he's at, because the massive bit of people in cell phone service is great.
Yeah.
At the time with that many people. Finally find him. We get in. I've got quite a bit of people with me. I think I had 8 people with me, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to sit kind of off to the side and we'll back a little bit to kind of help with the chants and stuff, because there's going to be people here that don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
We have capos and all, but I was like, hey, there's plenty of room back here. And it just so happened I was just outside of where the TIFO rolled up, the section over, and went up, and I was like, this is awesome because I actually get to see it before everybody else gets to watch it, either like on the jumbo or on replay. And when it rolled out, I got chills. I was like, I don't think some of the people were new, like this is their first game, and I was like, y'all don't understand like how big this is, but this is awesome because this is our announcement to the league, and it's like it couldn't be any better. Not to get off on that, but when it rolled out and the TIFO was up, and it was just kind of like, okay, here we are. This is happening. Like this is 100% real now, and it was just kind of surreal for a moment. And then, of course, the game started, and then, ever how it worked out. But when we scored, I completely lost it. Like I forgot where I was at for a little bit. I forgot kind of motor functions. Whatever I may be holding I may have spilled some liquid on people.
As long as the beer goes up or back, we're good. That's the rule.
It may have went all over the place. I don't know. I was wearing it, they were wearing it, and they're like, well, this really just happened. I was like, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. But when that goal happened, that was kind of the moment where I'm like, this is absolutely amazing, and like we're actually contenders here because they stayed in the game the whole time. And it was absolutely amazing.
No, absolutely. Would you say like, it's probably the hardest question to ask anyone is to put it into words, but like moments like that, would you say that's why you support the club? Like that's why you show up?
I think between that, the people in general, it's a little bit of everything all together. Just the whole community. Moments like that happen, you can't really quantify it, and it's kind of got that just it factor for you. You watch the replays on TV, you watch the videos of it, and you just get chills down your spine. I mean, it's amazing. You can't duplicate that in any other without being there, and that's the great thing about it.
I imagine, like most groups, you've probably formed kind of lifelong friends that, are there examples of lifelong friends or friends that you form now that you probably would not have known if it not been for soccer or the assembly?
Oh, no doubt. There's absolutely no doubt. But I mean, and there's people that I don't know how I would really have came in contact with them before.
Yeah.
A lot of it's limited schedule and what I do. And this, with Nashville Soccer Club, it puts me in contact with a lot of people in a short period of time. But I met people that's amazing. There's people on this call right now that I want to give a hug so bad I don't know what to do. Y'all know who you are. It's everybody. that's who it is. So one of them may have got a virtual hug earlier today. I'm not going to say who. Oh, he outed himself. That's fine.
I always appreciate it.
Yeah, right.
It smelled less like beer than usual. When Ryan hugs me, it's usually more beer-like.
Okay, I'll do it now, and then it'll feel about the same, right? But no, I think the reason for supporting the club, one, it's the club kind of embodies the city. It's hardworking. You put the hard work in, you get the results you want, and that's the people of the city. I mean, it showed during the tornadoes. It showed during the current pandemic we're in. I mean, there's people doing things to help people all over the city, and it's amazing,
I couldn't say it any better. I mean, it's just, we all try hard, whether it's, the supporters, the front office, the players, everyone tries to really make sure that we are representing the city the way it's supposed to be represented. I mean, that sounds cliche, but you nailed it in the fact that it's called the volunteer state, and this is the capital of the volunteer state for a reason. We show up when we need to show up, and it's not always easy to get out of bed and go clean up debris or get out of bed and do anything these days, right?
Very true.
But it's what we do. So I think you nailed it, Chip. I mean, I think you're another one that we could probably say, between playing in pickup games and helping to establish the Eastern Front, I gotta imagine that's been a big part of kind of who's your inner circle these days as well.
Yeah, no question. I've played the game for my entire life, essentially. I started playing when I was 5 years old. Have followed every incarnation of soccer in Nashville since I got here in the mid-'90s. Just recently posted a picture on some social media of the Metros playing in their final season at Rose Park. So
Yeah.
I feel extremely fortunate to be in a city that I'm a fan of and have a sport that I love come together in the form of NSC, and would be pulling for whatever soccer institution was here. But again, it's great to have something that's come together that I frankly didn't see coming when it first started being discussed locally, that there was a bid for MLS. But yeah, no question that soccer has created a social setting and a friend pool for a long time for me, and continues to do that. And as soon as we get back to where we want to be, it'll only get bigger. And I've met a lot of people like all these guys through both the Backline and a general support of the team. And that's fantastic. You meet a lot of people that you wouldn't otherwise meet. You have a lot of things in common, based in this instance, largely, if not exclusively, based on the love of the game.
Well, Bill hit on it earlier, but I asked you kind of a similar question. Obviously, it took everyone to put together the TIFO and make that come to life. You're probably painfully familiar with what it took to kind of bring everyone together in the Backline and that process. Knowing, kind of sitting through those meetings, there was a lot of them, and those discussions and everything else. How cool was it to experience the game, inaugural match, and seeing whether it was the tailgate or the TIFO or just the community that's been built around the Backline? How great has it been to see that process from the very beginning till now?
Yeah, it exceeded expectations, and my expectations were already pretty high. And like a lot of the guys have already said, there was a level of anxiety associated with pulling a lot of this stuff off, not just the TIFO that we talked about earlier, but tailgating at an MLS level and wanting to deliver not only for our group, but as a member institution of the Backline, knowing that the rest of these groups have an established practice. And I'm trying to, or we're trying to bring a group that has existed on its own little island in some ways, going back a while, over a decade, tailgating for U.S. International games at Nissan. We'd have a traditional tailgate over near the Exxon station and did that pretty consistently, whether the men or the women were in town. And to convince that old guard that we should try to incorporate into this emerging group was not easy, quite, to be quite candid. But to a man, everybody I've talked to that was slow to agree to that has acknowledged it was a fantastic experience, and that you are multiplying the tailgate experience by a factor that you can't really put a number on by getting involved.
We're creatures of habit, right? I mean,
sure.
I jokingly mentioned it earlier. It's hard to get out of bed, right? It's hard to do this and that, but it's hard to change as well. And so we're all guilty of it, including myself in a lot of different aspects. And so, like, I think that kind of goes to the tip of the hat to every group that's in this call right now, and a couple that couldn't make it. Of like, it takes a big person, it takes a big group to say, you know what, it may be better for the entirety if we just kind of take a step back and think about what can we do that's bigger than just our individual group.
Yeah, no question. And I think we very much had that experience easing into this year. October 12th has been referenced a couple of times, and we shifted into the greater group for that event. And as much fun as it was, and as great a success as it was, it paled in comparison to what happened to kick off the MLS season. So we're enthusiastic to get back at things and build on the traditions that are already there.
Well, one thing that I thought is kind of interesting, and I kind of just open this up to anyone, and we'll kind of close on this in a way. I thought it was interesting since that first game. There's been it's not a recognized group by any means, and it's really not the point of it. But there's been this Golden Girls group that's kind of popped up, and I think it really hits on the head of what Fernando and Belair and some other folks have said, in that, you know, we need different groups of different backgrounds to help kind of welcome everyone, right? And look, if we're being honest, we look at this call right now, it's a bunch of guys. And so having a group like the Golden Girls, to give them a shout out, I think is invaluable. And I'm sure we all know someone that's in that group, and they're doing some fun things, and wish they continue to grow and whatnot. I know there's a few assembly for sure that are in there, and I think Jason Moles, his wife, is in there as well. Open to anyone that wants to kind of chime in here. How cool has it been to kind of see this female group of Golden Girls pop up?
It's been amazing. It's really funny you brought it up, because before I started this, my girlfriend's like, make sure you mention the Golden Girls. And I was like, well, I mean, that's a given, because we have so many members that are members of the Golden Girls also. And I'm sure it's really nice because it's kind of a safe space for them also.
Yeah. Sure.
To kind of, to actually kind of have somewhat of a voice as a collective between all the supporters groups. Jennifer is our president, and
yep.
she's a major part of the Golden Girls also.
Which I think is a great point to bring up, and not to overshadow any other group here, but the fact that the assembly has a female president is another cool. To me, it's a cool thing. Like, there's a more eloquent way to probably put that, but it just shows that this sport, this club, this group that's in this car now is for everyone. So kudos on that.
Yeah, Jennifer and Brandon both. I love both of them. Like that.
I don't like Brandon.
Yeah. The lifelong friends.
Jennifer's great though.
Yeah, they're part of that. I actually got I had to deliver them some beer, kind of social distance, wise, just to be able to see some folks at some point. So that was amazing. But
if you hand someone a beer at arm's length and they grab it at arm's length, that's 6 feet.
Well, it's actually I set it on his tailgate.
Okay.
And then walked off, and then he picked it up off his tailgate, and then I sat at the hatch of our vehicle, and then he stood at his vehicle, and we both drank a beer. But I think it's amazing that this is something that the members of all the groups came together and decided this is something they wanted to do. And plus, it's also the Golden Girls, which I don't want to fanboy it over anything, but that was going to be our Christmas or Halloween costume last year, but we weren't able to do it. We weren't able to pull it off in time, but
What was going to be your Christmas costume?
Christmas costume.
Santa Claus. It's young Santa Claus, though. I mean, I could pull it off, right?
Absolutely.
Any other groups that have Bill? I don't know if there's any female heaters that are participating in Golden Girl. Is any other groups in there that that have members or actively part of that group?
Yeah, we have a few. That kind of through Moles and his wife, sort of finding that channel and going, yeah, I'm gonna check this out, and finding a place for them. And it's cool to see that sort of grow, because it's so crazy, because we all come together and do this, and we kind of don't take a step back and look at the group and look at everyone and go, yeah, this is another group that would be hugely beneficial to everything.
Agreed. Well, guys, it's been a fun talk. I've enjoyed it. We've gone quite a while here. I've seen a couple yawns there, Bill. So hopefully we didn't get you too bored there. But again, big thanks to Heineken for supplying me and the boys some cold ones here. Definitely needed. There you go. Don't spill it. There you go. But appreciate you joining me and having a little chat here, and we'll catch up again here soon. Hopefully next time face to face though, at a distance.
Most definitely.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chris.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chris.